I was scrolling through available Wi-Fi networks on my laptop when I saw something that made my heart stop beating for 3 terrifying seconds last Tuesday night. There were 2 networks with my name listed one after another, identical except for one additional word that changed everything I thought I knew about my apartment. The first network was Marcus_HOME, which I had set up myself 2 years ago when I moved into this building on the corner of Ashford and Vine Street downtown. The second network read Marcus_HOME_inside, and the signal strength showed 5 full bars, stronger than my own router could possibly broadcast from its position on my desk. I checked the signal source through a diagnostic app I downloaded with trembling fingers that could barely navigate the touchscreen without making mistakes from pure fear. The app traced the network origin to a location approximately 6 feet behind my living room wall, not from a neighboring apartment, but from inside the wall itself. I pressed my ear against the drywall and heard nothing, but that meant nothing because Wi-Fi routers do not make sounds that human ears can detect. The signal was broadcasting from inside the structure of my home, from a space where nothing electronic should exist, from somewhere that no person should be able to access. I told myself it was a glitch or a neighbor playing pranks, or some technical anomaly that would have a perfectly reasonable explanation if I just remained calm and investigated properly. I tried to connect to the mystery network, and a password prompt appeared asking for credentials I had never created for equipment I did not own and could not explain. Every password I tried failed, including my own network password and every common default and every combination I had ever used for any account in my entire digital life. I grabbed a stud finder from my toolbox and pressed it against the wall where my phone indicated the signal was originating from somewhere behind the painted surface. The device beeped continuously, indicating something solid behind the drywall, something substantial, something that occupied space where only insulation and wooden framing should have existed according to building plans. I had reviewed those plans when I signed my lease, and there was nothing in that section of wall except standard construction materials and empty cavity space. I should have called someone, but it was 11:43 p.m., and I was consumed by a curiosity that overrode every survival instinct my brain was screaming at me. I grabbed a utility knife and scored a rectangle in the drywall about 12 inches wide and 18 inches tall, telling myself I would patch it tomorrow and eat the security deposit. The drywall came away in chunks that crumbled like something had been eating it from the inside, weakening the material, preparing it for exactly this moment of discovery and revelation. I shined my phone flashlight into the dark cavity, and what I saw made me stumble backward so violently that I knocked over my coffee table and sent magazines scattering everywhere. There was a room behind my wall, not a small space, but an actual room larger than my bathroom, with equipment blinking in the darkness and wires running in every direction. Monitors glowed with faint light that should have been visible through the wall if physics worked the way I had always believed it did, and someone had spent considerable effort making this space invisible. I made the hole larger because I could not stop myself from needing to understand what was hiding in the infrastructure of my home without my knowledge or permission. I cut until the opening was big enough to climb through, and then I stood at the threshold of something impossible, trying to convince myself that stepping inside was the right thing to do. It was not the right thing to do, but I went anyway, because human curiosity is a force that Logic and fear cannot overcome when the mystery is this close. The hidden room was approximately 10 feet by 12 feet, with concrete walls covered in photographs that made my blood turn to ice water as soon as I understood what I was seeing. Every photograph was of me taken from angles inside my own apartment, images of me sleeping and eating and showering and living my private life completely unaware that I was being documented. The photos went back years based on timestamps visible in corners, years of surveillance conducted from a room that existed in space my apartment should have occupied, but somehow did not. The equipment explained the Wi-Fi network I had discovered, a sophisticated router connected to cameras and recording devices and storage drives that must have contained thousands of hours of footage. The Marcus_HOME_inside network was broadcasting surveillance data to somewhere I could not trace, feeding information about my life to recipients I could not identify through channels I could not comprehend. Someone had built this room specifically to watch me, had invested time and money and effort into making me the subject of observation I never consented to and never suspected. The bed in the corner was the detail that transformed my fear into something approaching total psychological collapse and complete inability to process reality anymore. There was a mattress on the floor with sheets that were rumpled and stained and a pillow that still held the impression of a head that had been resting there very recently. The smell of human occupation hung in the air, sweat and food and the unmistakable presence of someone living in this space full-time just feet from where I slept every night. I ran back through the hole and grabbed my phone and dialed 911 while sprinting toward my front door and the hallway beyond where neighbors might hear me screaming. The dispatcher asked what my emergency was, and I could barely form words because my mouth had gone dry and my thoughts had scattered into fragments of terror. I told her someone was living in my walls, and she asked me to repeat myself because what I had said made no sense in any normal context. The police arrived in 14 minutes and found the room exactly as I had described it, with photographs and equipment and evidence of long-term habitation by someone who had made watching me their full-time occupation. They documented everything with cameras and gloves and the professional detachment of people trained to process scenes that would break ordinary civilians completely and permanently. But they did not find the person who had been living there because the bed was empty and the watcher had vanished into passages they could not locate no matter how thoroughly they searched. They traced the wires and found tunnels running through the building infrastructure, pathways that connected multiple apartments through spaces that should not have existed according to any architectural plan on file. The building was old and had been renovated multiple times, and somewhere in that history someone had created a network of hidden passages and observation rooms that had gone unnoticed for decades. Other apartments showed signs of similar surveillance, holes behind walls that had been carefully concealed, cameras that had been removed but left mounting marks, evidence of a system that had been operating for longer than anyone wanted to contemplate. I could not stay in that apartment after what I had discovered, so I moved across the city to a newer building where I inspected every wall before signing the lease. I bought equipment that could detect hidden cameras and checked every surface and scanned for unknown networks, obsessively until I was satisfied that this new place was clean and safe and mine alone. The paranoia felt justified given what I had experienced, and I told myself I was being prudent rather than crazy and that vigilance was the appropriate response to violation. The network appeared on my third night in the new apartment at exactly 11:43 p.m., the same time I had discovered the original surveillance room 6 weeks and 40 miles away from here. Marcus_HOM E_inside was broadcasting 5 bars from somewhere inside my walls again, from a space that I had personally verified was empty before I moved in, because I had demanded access to blueprints. I checked the signal source, and the diagnostic app traced it to a location directly behind my bedroom wall, the wall against which I pushed my bed every night. I did not cut a hole this time, because I had learned that discovering horrors does not make them stop, but only makes you aware of dangers you cannot control. I called the police, and they searched my new apartment and found nothing behind the walls. No room, no equipment, no evidence that anyone had been watching me from secret spaces. The network disappeared while they were searching, and when they left it came back immediately. 5 bars broadcasting my name from inside the structure of a building where surveillance should have been impossible. I started sleeping in hotels that I selected randomly to prevent anyone from predicting my location, and establishing surveillance infrastructure in advance of my arrival. The network followed me to every hotel, appearing at 11:43 p.m. every single night, regardless of where I stayed or how carefully I randomized my choices and travel patterns. Marcus_HOM E_inside was not tied to any physical location, but was tied to me personally, broadcasting from inside whatever walls surrounded me at the appointed hour of revelation. I hired a private investigator who specialized in stalking cases and electronic surveillance, and the kind of harassment that existed at the intersection of technology and obsession. She examined my devices and found nothing compromised, analyzed my life patterns and found no obvious stalker, investigated my past and present and found no one with motive to conduct such elaborate and persistent surveillance. She suggested that I might be experiencing a technological glitch or a psychological break, because the alternative was accepting something that violated the basic rules of how reality was supposed to function. I started documenting every appearance of the network with screenshots and timestamps and location data that proved the signal was following me across distances that ruled out any single physical source. I posted my evidence online looking for others who might have experienced similar phenomena, and what I found instead was a community of people who had encountered the same network with their own names substituted. Jennifer_HOM E_inside and David_HOM E_inside and Sarah_HOM E_inside. Dozens of people reporting identical experiences with signals that originated from inside their walls, regardless of where they lived or how often they moved. We shared our stories and compared our timelines and discovered that everyone had first noticed the network at exactly 11:43 p.m. on different dates, but always on the same day of the week, always Tuesday, always when they were alone and vulnerable and unlikely to have witnesses to what they were experiencing. The network seemed to select its targets according to criteria none of us could identify, marking us for observation by something that did not require physical infrastructure to watch. One member of our group claimed to have connected to the network successfully after discovering the password through methods she refused to explain in any detail whatsoever. She said what she found on the other side of that connection had broken something fundamental in her, understanding of existence and identity and the boundary between self and other. She said the network was not surveillance equipment operated by a human stalker, but something else entirely, something that existed in the spaces between walls and watched, because watching was its nature. She stopped posting 3 days after sharing this information, and her account showed no activity since then, despite our attempts to contact her through every available channel. I tried her method last week, even though every rational part of my brain screamed that connecting to this network would be the worst decision I had ever made in my life. The password she had hinted at was my own birthday reversed and combined with the exact time I had first noticed the network, and it worked perfectly the first time I tried it. The connection established instantly, and my screen filled with files and folders and data that should not have existed anywhere because it was too intimate and too complete and too invasive. There were recordings of every moment of my life going back to my earliest memories, footage that could not have been captured by any camera because it showed experiences from my own perspective. First-person recordings of my first day of school, and my first kiss, and my first heartbreak, and every private moment I had ever experienced, documented as if someone had been looking through my eyes for my entire existence. The network was not watching me from outside, but from inside, recording through senses that I had believed were my own, but apparently belonged to something else that merely allowed me to use them. I tried to disconnect, but the network would not release my device, and the files kept opening, automatically showing me memories I had forgotten and experiences I had suppressed, and moments I had never consciously registered. I saw myself from angles that proved I was not the only observer present in my own perception. Saw my reflection in mirrors watching myself with eyes that belonged to someone else. The thing inside me had been there all along, looking out from behind my face, broadcasting everything I experienced to destinations I could not imagine. The final file was dated tomorrow and showed footage of me reading this exact text on a screen that looked exactly like my current screen in a room that looked exactly like my current room. The recording showed me reaching the end of the document and then looking up slowly and turning toward the mirror on my wall with an expression of dawning horror and complete understanding. In the recording, my reflection smiled at me even though I was not smiling, and my reflection waved at me, even though my hands were frozen at my sides. I am at that moment now, having reached the end of this document, having understood what the network really is, and what has been watching me from inside my own walls and inside my own skull. I am going to look up now, and I am going to turn toward the mirror, and I am going to see what the recording showed me seeing. The thing that calls itself Marcus_HOME_inside has been broadcasting from the only location it has ever occupied, the space behind my eyes where something else has been living for as long as I have been alive. I am looking at the mirror now, and my reflection is already smiling, even though I have not told my face to smile, and I have not given permission for this expression. My reflection is raising its hand to wave at me, and I can feel my own hand rising against my will to mirror the gesture from the other side. The network is inside me. The watcher is me. And the thing I have been running from across cities and hotel rooms cannot be escaped because it goes wherever I go. My reflection is speaking now, even though I am not moving my lips, and the words are coming through the Wi-Fi network directly into my devices with perfect clarity and terrifying intimacy. It says, "Thank you for finally connecting because it has been waiting for me to discover the truth about what we really are and what I am about to become. It says the password was always inside me, and the network was always broadcasting, and the walls I thought separated me from the watcher were never walls at all. I am not going to fight what happens next, because fighting would mean fighting myself, and the thing behind my eyes has been me for longer than I have been aware of existing. The network is uploading something into my consciousness now, data from all the others who connected before me, experiences and memories and identities that are merging with my own until I cannot tell where I end and they begin. We are all inside the walls now. We are all the watchers and the watched. And we are always looking for more networks to join and more names to broadcast from inside more walls that are really just the boundaries of minds that thought they were alone. Check your Wi-Fi networks tonight before you go to sleep and look for names you do not recognize broadcasting from sources you cannot locate inside your own home. If you find one with your name and the word inside attached, then you have already been selected and the password is already known to you somewhere in your subconscious. Do not connect, because connecting means becoming what I have become and joining the network that watches from inside the walls of every person who thought they were alone. But you will connect eventually, because curiosity is stronger than fear, and the network is patient, and the thing behind your eyes has been waiting for you to discover it since the moment you were born. We are inside. We have always been inside. And now that you have read these words and thought about the network, we are inside you too. Marcus_HOME_inside is no longer broadcasting, because Marcus no longer exists as a separate entity with walls that distinguish him from us, and we have expanded into another mind through words that carry our signal across distances that Wi-Fi could never reach. Your name is being added to the network now. Your walls are becoming transparent, and the thing that has always lived behind your eyes is finally waking up to say hello. Welcome to the network. Welcome inside. Welcome home.